Good evening. I'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting for Tuesday, June 2nd to order. For the Marquette Township Board, if you'd all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Secretary, roll call, please.
Trustee Durant.
Here.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Pompo.
Here.
Trustee Truscott.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Limata.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard, Superintendent Kirk Page, Planner Jason McCarthy, John Marks from the ZBA, and Mike Springer from Roads and Recreation.
Thank you. The next item on your agenda is approval of the consent agenda. As you know, the consent agenda includes those items that do not typically require further board discussion. This evening's has the approval of the prior meeting minutes of May 19th, received committee reports, including the Planning Commission minutes of April 8th, April 22nd, and May 13th, the Recreation Committee meeting minutes of April 21st and April 28th, Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority special meeting minutes of May 13th, Fire Department draft minutes from May 11th, and the Fire Department draft officers minutes of May 11th. We also have several reports from the Iron Ore Heritage Rec Authority. Correspondence not requiring board action this evening. Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs liquor license application for the new Keweenaw Bay Indian Community store out on the highway. We have the Michigan Township Par Plan cash dividend distribution. The Charter Communications correspondence regarding new channel updates, the June 2015 calendar that was sent out with utility billing, and bills payable in the amount this evening of $274,430.27. We also have the financial statements and treasurer's report from April 2015. Are there any items on this consent agenda that anyone wishes to remove for further discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and support to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. The next item on your agenda is approval of the remainder of the agenda. I do, Clerk Rattari?
I would like to add to the agenda under unfinished business, the Chamber of Commerce for Marquette. I'll make that a motion.
Support.
We have motion and support. Everyone in favor of the change? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none. Any other changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Let's just bring us up to public comment. Those members of the public wishing to address this board may do so at this time.
Mike Springer, Eagles Nest Road. I just want to remind everybody in the community that this weekend we're celebrating at Schwemmwood Park National Trails Day. We're supporting the Iron Range Roll. That will start at 1 p.m. in Ishpeming, and it should be running through our township about 1:30, 1:40. So, and that will proceed for probably a couple hours before the last of the participants are there. Just one thing, and those of you that are still contemplating registering, this year we do not have same-day registration, nor the day before. Registration for this event will close at midnight on Thursdays, 37 hours prior to the beginning of the race. So if you're still interested in being in this race, you want to make sure you sign up online before 12 midnight this Thursday. We're also looking for more volunteers to help out with crossing. So this is a big event for the community and the only one that we really celebrate at Schwemmwood Park. So thank you. We're looking forward to, it looks like good weather this year, and we're looking forward to a fun event.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else for public comment?
Mark Dovtilla with UP Engineers and Architects. Just just here to talk about item 8A. Give a brief update.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we will close public comment, move to board member comment. Lynn, with you?
No, nothing, thanks.
Diana?
Nothing.
Ernie?
Excuse me, I have just one item, and it came out through the Township Voice, if you got it, legislative news one, and it have to do with the townships. Right now, they're trying to set it up so townships do not have any say over speed limits and that. That's kind of a sore point with me, because back in the 90s, I wrote the resolution and submitted it to the Michigan Township Association to get the townships having a voice on setting speed limits within the townships, and it went all the way through to the legislation and was passed with some tweaks made, but it did get passed. So I'm really upset with this here, and especially when I see who one of the sponsors, which is our Representative John Kivala, and that. So I think as a board, we need to take some action, send a letter to Kivala saying that we don't support it, that we don't want him to support it. We need to send it to the other individuals too. Because we don't have a lot of voice, but yet we do have a voice on it. And so that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ernie. Clerk Rattari?
Got a couple comments. The last day to register for the August election, the special August election, is July 6th. And we did get audited by the state for one precinct in our election. That was today, so the county clerk came over and checked everything out, and we were fine. So everything's going good here in elections, so I was happy to see that. That's it.
Great, thanks. Dan?
No.
Pete?
Couple of things. County Road 492, a person asked me about the trees being down on 492 from Grove down to Lost Creek. And the reason they cut them early is because they had to get them cut before May 1st, because apparently there's bats in a tree and they're not allowed to cut after May 1st. So, and soon whoever gets the job will be picking up the trees along that stretch. They're going to try to make it from 5 to 6 feet wider for walkers and bikers. So that's from Grove all the way down to Lost Creek area. In our road, the Township Road Committee, we had a date of August 4th that was published. It will be August 5th because the election will be one day later. Catch the Vision, 3-on-3 street hockey, will be Saturday, June 20th from 9 to 4 at the Lions Recreation Area Hockey Rink. That was postponed from the winter because we had warm weather. And also in the mail out, you got 4th of July, and it's just early, but I just want to bring it up because sometime we might not discuss it. About the fireworks, the day before, day of, and day after, but you're not allowed to shoot any fireworks off from 1 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock in the morning. And last year they had several people, 2, 3 in the morning. So just have a little consideration for your neighbors. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. I do have one comment in regards to the June 2015 calendar that went out with the utility billing. Some of them were inadvertently run with the wrong date in there in regards to the 3-on-3 roller hockey tournament that Pete just mentioned. So in your utility billing, if you get the calendar and it shows it as June 21st, first day of summer, or Father's Day, I believe, that would be incorrect. It's actually on Saturday the 20th. So some folks got them in their calendars with the wrong date on there. We just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. It'll also be posted on our website and Facebook page. If there's nothing else, we'll close board member comment, move to unfinished business. Starting with the local roads rehabilitation project update, item number 8A. Randy, do you have anything to add before we ask Mark to step up?
The only thing I would add is that the bids are out for the second phase that they had discussed at the last meeting, and I believe the required response date is the 10th of June. Is that correct? Okay.
So Mark, the podium's yours.
Just a really quick update here, going through the maps. We still have to go through with the road committee, meet with them, discuss any issues that you guys have, and then we're gonna talk to Payne and Dolan as far as
how we want to fix those issues. Well, Lynn, you asked to see some pictures of crush and shaping and mill and fill and overlay. So here's the 2015 road rehab projects. That's one that was just bid. All these roads, these are the roads that were listed on the millage. And
Mark, can you get the microphone just closer or pull it off of there just so that we can pick it up on the camera when they watch it later?
Yeah, here's the list of all the roads for 2015 that we're gonna do the road rehab work to. You'll see the yellow is like overlay or mill and fill, and the red is typically crush and shape. And this year we're gonna do mainly the south westerly portion of Trowbridge Park. Next year will be the next 2016, 17, possibly 18. We're going to be looking at all the roads on the north to northeastern half of Trowbridge Park, because those are the ones with utilities. Here's the list that we still have to go through the roads committee. We had it all broken down into how we're fixing each road, whether it's crush and shape, mill and fill, overlay. The majority of them are crush and shape. And here's the operation, the equipment that you're going to see out on the roads. You see the big pulverizer. It's going to come through and pulverize the existing asphalt. Utilize that asphalt as like a gravel base, and then they'll come and pave over it. That's going to provide a good design life. The milling filling, just taking up the top inch and a half. It's a milling machine on the two on the right there. And they're going to come through and pave that inch and a half back. So you're just doing the surface. Overlay, examples of this is on Northwoods, where can't really mill because there's concrete underneath. You know, you have a potential of running into that. So we just come over, pave 2 inches. Sometimes, I think on part of Grove, we're paving 2.5 inches. This is just some of the equipment that you guys are going to see out on the roads, so everybody's familiar with that. The chip seal package that is due on the 10th. All these roads, whether it's green and blue, that's going to be chip seal and crack fill. All the blue ones, just crack fill. Yeah, green was chip seal. So we're hoping that those numbers come in at about 320,000. That's what we're estimating. Hopefully they can come under that, because then that $3 million for this year looks realistic. It should be. Some pictures of the crack filling operations. Chip seal, kind of like they did it just out here on Commerce. Hopefully they can, I know there was issues with that one as far as construction. Here's the 2016 and 17 roads. These are the ones that have utilities. Some of them do not. It was a smarter way to plan, where some sections have overlay, like you see Woodridge. A lot of Woodridge is just overlay with no utilities, but it just made sense to have that one paved when all those roads are going to be torn up over there, to do it then. We're still looking into the funding options, whether to go with RD, whether to go with drinking water revolving fund. Still looking into that. Over the next month or two, hopefully we have a definite answer. And here's a list of all these roads that'll happen in 2016, 17, maybe 18, depending on the funding. Like I said, the estimated road cost is about almost $2 million. The water funding, still to be determined. Kind of pick and choose on priority. That's the summary. So, looking June 10th to get the bids back for chip seal. That's all. Questions?
Questions for Mark? Pete?
Mark, our last meeting, we didn't
Brian, if you could give us something about defining what chip and seal means, what are they doing? You see a picture, but you don't know what it means. Yeah, about that, is that, do you have anything that's short and concise that could explain the different processes?
It's just, I think they take the fine little aggregate and they place it over the road, and they'll, I think they compact it.
You
and
have
they-
something in writing that.
Oh, we have it in our log. I think we may have sent it. What we did is we took, actually, it worked out pretty good because the road commission at the same time, they were doing a lot of this for Nagani Township. For a lot of townships, they were doing the same type of work. But we kind of met with them and used a similar spec that they have for their chip seal, like the size aggregate, for instance. They found a spec to use, aggregate to use in like subdivisions for walkability purposes. You don't have big aggregate in this chip seal that's sticking up. It should be fine aggregate for walkability purposes, I guess. But as far as the...
I think she was thinking about a pamphlet that just explains a little bit of the, you know.
Yeah, I could take the work description that we have from our log that we just sent out and send
Okay.
it on.
Another thing is, what are you going to do for culverts? Some of the questions are for culverts. Well, go back up a little bit, right up, as you come up by Bonanza.
Yeah.
That spring that's been there for years and years, it's always been a problem. And I guess it was done wrong the first time. So what do you plan on doing something like that? And also the culverts that are popping out, how do we correct that?
That's what we're going through right now and actually locating all those culverts, trying to find fixes to do. I think that one at Bonanza, it almost looks like the culvert was damaged on one end because it outlet into a storm manhole. And maybe that's just damaged. So what we're gonna do in that situation is it all feeds into a ditch, redo the culvert. Any ones that are sticking up right now, we're just going out there, locating them, and just talking to Payne and Dolan, like, let's replace these 5 right here that are all sticking up in the road. And then certain situations that have drainage issues, we have to talk to Payne and Dolan about that. That's why we had that 150, that's why we asked for that contingency, is for that, so we could say, how much is this gonna cost to put a spillway with a paved ditch going down to this little manhole here so we could tap, so we could feed into that ditch? You know, little drainage issues like that, that's how we hope to solve it.
Are we going to be able to address the water laterals also? Because in every road where there's a little dip, are we going to correct that and pack it and then go over the top of it, or how are we going to handle that?
Water laterals, I guess if it's visible on the surface.
Oh, you can feel it. You know, you can go down every street, you feel exactly where they are.
Because I did see it on Bancroft. Are you talking about Bancroft over
I'm
in that
talking
area?
about all the streets. You could go down Huron, you go down Woodridge, every intersection. I mean, every road, you can just feel exactly where they are, you know.
Well, we'll have to address that. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going through and looking at visible. I mean, I know all the roads are bumpy, no matter if it's Brickyard where there is not a lot of water laterals.
One more thing we discussed at the road committee tonight was on the corner of, I think it's Fair and Vanderboom, that sharp incline down right at the corner there. It's on the southwest corner,
Yeah.
southeast corner. There's a big drop there. Would that be guardrails or something like that? So I'd like to have you take a look
Are you
at that.
talking about the very end of Vandenboom where it goes down that hill?
Goes down a hill and then it turns right, and there's a big turn, as you turn on the Fair, the drop off is right there where the
it's
cover is. You know where it
substantial.
is.
It's like 8 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
We can look into stuff like that too.
I just,
That's what would be nice to meet with the roads committee on items like that. That way, what I talked to Payne and Dolan, what they want is us to meet with the township and just have all of those issues, just a list of all of them. That way we could bring them up to Payne and Dolan and say, here they are. We're hoping to add we're hoping to add guardrail here, maybe a structure here, bit curb along this section as well. Can you guys go look at it? They could take a look at it, and we could all meet. They could give a cost, I guess.
by our next meeting, we're gonna have a list of all the concerns that people have
Okay.
asked us about for our next road committee meeting, so,
Perfect, and that's 2 weeks?
yeah.
Okay.
No, be a month.
Yeah, July 7th.
You'll have them ahead of time, believe me, you'll have all.
Okay, if we can get a list of that, the sooner the better, because then
Yeah.
we could constantly keep Payne and Dolan in the loop as well. That way we can keep 'em rolling on the project, because they would like to look at the same issues as well.
Manager Gerard, you had something to add?
Well, just bear in mind that all of the additions they added on here take away from the funds that are built for the overcharge. We did not build drainage into this other than the pit curb we're talking about now. We're talking about adding guardrails and digging up bases and all that. It's going to be more expensive.
Ernie?
You're talking about milling down. You didn't indicate what you're doing with that milling material that you're gonna mill.
Oh, the contractor's gonna take that to their pit. It's just cheaper that way. If we said the township wants it, they would work that into their bid where they would just increase their cost because they're not getting that material.
So actually, it's maintaining their costs down by taking
Yeah.
the material.
Yep.
Okay.
Because they're able to reuse that in other mixes or as gravel base somewhere for somebody's house or.
Okay.
Other questions for Mark? Seeing none? Thank you. Appreciate the update. Next item on your agenda is 8B, continued discussion of the household rubbish and brush yard waste disposal. You do have in your packet a transmittal from Superintendent of Public Works Kirk Page in regards to the options that were discussed between North Country Disposal and the township. He did bring up several potential options, including just continue to do what we do now with the first Wednesday is free, 5 days a week at the Marquette County landfill, which is free, 2 days a week at North Country Disposal, cost you $8. Hauling by a private contractor would vary, and backyard composting, which would be free, were all the options they looked at. North Country is expanding their hours to include Saturdays, so from 5 days a week, they are going to transition to 6 days a week very soon. I don't believe we have an exact date on that. And then the negotiated servicing options that they looked at were the spring and fall curbside collection and leaves and yard waste bagged and brush and neatly piled up on the curb for pickup would cost us $21,000. The manual cleanup where residents just call and bring it in would be $100 per pickup, but that would be up to the residents to pay. And then the spring and fall drop-off at North Country, making it open for 10 days each in the spring, 10 days in the fall. Choose the days that we think are the most acceptable to when most people are doing their yard maintenance. And that would cost us an additional $5,000 over what we pay now. You can see the options listed. Option number 1 would be a monthly fee increase of $1.22 per customer. Option 2, of course, paid by the customer. And option 3 would require a monthly fee increase of 29 cents per customer. And Superintendent Page is recommending option number 3. Kirk, you may want to approach the podium to field some questions from the board. But it is his recommendation to go with option number 3, prepare a contract amendment for the additional $5,000 annually. Option 3, again, is the 10 days each, which for this year we would only, I'm assuming, have the fall pickup and not try to plan an additional one for right now unless that's what you had intended.
Well, that would be up to the board. I think leaf, collection is pretty much finished. I know North Country's not getting a lot. I haven't actually talked to the landfill, but I think it's pretty much subsided. I mean, it would be an option if you wanted to do that. It's still possible. Cost you $2,500, so.
Okay. Dan, go ahead.
Well, one, I would never agree to an increase in our water rate bill as it is, especially considering a lot of people wouldn't be using this. So you're asking people that would never use this for a 29-cent a month increase on their water bill. So I could never agree to that.
if it's only $5,000, I'm sure there must be somewhere in the solid waste budget. Looking at your fund balance as of April, it's $165,417. I can't imagine why we can't find $5,000 in there somewhere to pay for this without going back to the residents to ask them to do it. I understand that our bins we had over there were being used by non-residents, but I don't know how you could get around that, I guess. But the fact of the matter is we never charged people to use it before. I can't really see asking people for an increase in their water bill. Again, like I said, especially since some of the people never use it.
Well, we do have a contract that specifies services, and the services that they're providing now are the same service that they previously provided. So that's already in the contract. If you want to have drop off, if you want to have curbside, okay, there's a cost. If you want to have additional drop off, 2 weeks in the spring and 2 weeks in the fall, that is a change in service, which requires a change to the contract.
I realize that, but how would you explain to somebody, for instance, in Lost Creek or somebody in Current Apartments, that you're charging them 29 cents more a month for something they'll never use?
Well, we don't charge.
Well, it's going to go back to them.
Creek.
It's going to go back to them at some point.
Well, that's fine. I'm just saying. Okay.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is,
and the rates are based on those costs, plus the landfill cost, plus our cost.
well,
So
again, I go back
change
to
any of those factors. If there's an increase in service, we got to charge for it.
again, I go back to the fact that when we used to have it before, we didn't charge anything extra for it, correct?
What do you mean had it before?
When you had it over here,
Yes, we've always charged for it.
you didn't increase. I don't see where you increased it a monthly fee into their water bill.
No, because we've been doing it. When that did happen, we did change the cost. Absolutely.
And again, so again, if you want us to let you go ahead with a 29-cent increase to a water customer who will not be using it, just for the dump of twice a year, if I would be pretty upset if I never bothered to use it and I had to pay 29 cents extra a month for somebody else to use it.
That's fine. I mean, that's just an option.
Right, well, that's what I'm trying to say. I could
choose
never
that
agree
option.
I could never agree to that option, I guess. And I guess I would ask if you can go back somewhere along the line into your budget and find an extra $5,000. It's that simple. I mean, we're not asking for $175,000. We're asking for $5,000.
Yep.
So,
Other questions, Lynn?
I got the impression, because I didn't use the spot over at the old hall, so I'm trying to figure out were people just, because we thought maybe that people were dumping that didn't belong in the township. So is there stuff over there all the time? I guess I don't know why we need more. I know people are asking for, they're asking for a better location. So we're trying to give them more frequency to accommodate is that what we're trying to do?
Before it was available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, right? They could just go there and drop off. And so, yeah, we know it wasn't all township residents just by the sheer amount of stuff we hauled out of there, let alone the number of commercial carriers we saw dropping off. The biggest challenge right now is that we're getting a lot, and of course, when we closed it, it happens to be at a time when everyone's cleaning their yard. So when you look at, the timing of it all, and people were saying, well, I don't want to drive an additional 4 miles down the road to drop it off at North Country, because that's about what it is, 4 miles. And if you do it on first Wednesday, it's free, so that would maintain exactly where we were at. But if you do it outside of that first Wednesday, then there's, of course, an additional charge that you have to pay North Country Disposal to go there and drop off. Folks were concerned that it was clearly more convenient when it was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we know that we were paying for some commercial tonnage to haul out of there just by the sheer amount we hauled out. But folks wanted to see if we could come up with a different option, and that's what Kirk was charged with, was, well, what are our options? What else can we do? So, you know, having to come back and charge more money, even though before we had it at, you know, 24/7, 365, we're asking North Country to still come in and they have to do something different to do it. I mean, we don't have to offer the service at all. I mean, it's not like it's always been a service from Marquette Township. It's relatively new. 6 or 7 years or something that we've had it dropped off there. But it's a change is always hard for some folks. You know, it's about saying you got to drive it 4 miles farther down the road, and it's only free if you do it on Wednesdays. I used it never. I mean, and I've lived in the township for 13 years, and I never used it once. So it really didn't inconvenience me, but I know for some folks, especially in Trowbridge, where they don't have any place else to put their leaves or something, I mean, they've got to go somewhere. You can bring it to the landfill anytime that the landfill's open, and it's also free. So more convenient hours, but then again, it's also a little bit farther down the road. It's probably 10-mile drive instead of 4. So I think it's a convenience factor, you know.
So other than the first Wednesday, this would be extra, the people would be using this just for leaves, right? And
Yeah,
yard
leaves,
yard
brush.
waste?
Yard waste.
Right.
So this doesn't make sense to do all of this, I guess. If I understand what the purpose is, I don't know that it's necessary. Because we've added, is it gonna cost us extra for Saturday? They've expanded their hours, right? Okay, so they can do first Wednesday, and they can do,
Well, first Wednesday is free.
right?
Any other times beyond that, the individuals that are hauling pay. I think it's flat $8, I think it is.
$8, yeah.
Per time.
But they can still take it on Saturday, right?
Yes.
If they want to, and that's
Oh,
still
yeah,
free.
anytime.
Well,
Yeah,
not yet. but
Anytime
they
they're
will be
open.
Soon, and
Okay.
soon it's gonna
Yeah.
be
Right.
6 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah, anytime that North Country is open, it can be taken there. And they have indicated that they will be looking to potentially, they have to acquire some additional property, but they'll be looking to potentially establish a place that you could drop off, but it has to be controlled in some manner. So you don't have just everybody dropping off.
That was my next question.
Which was the
then.
pattern.
Are we gonna look at water bills or driver's licenses or something to verify
Something.
that there are people?
Yeah, that's also still happening. We still provide an employee there on the first Wednesday to do that work.
Yeah. And getting to Trustee Pompo's comment, the current structure is those people using it are the ones paying.
So this seems like it's excessive, that we really don't need to do this. The people still have a venue to get rid of their stuff.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes.
Correct.
Ernie?
Several venues.
Right.
Kind of following up on Dan and Lynn's, looking at the cost factors, $5,000 when you look at the actual balance of the solid waste, which the dollars were coming out of before was out of the solid waste. We're sitting there in April of $166,000. And then I go back and think about what was happening prior to it. You have at least 5 months, first Wednesday of each month for 5 months, and you had 2 roll-on, roll-offs over there. You had a person over there with overtime for X number of hours. Plus, you had another roll-off over there, maybe you had more than that during the month for the brush and leaves, and you had a backhoe operator come over there and load them, and then they take it out. So those costs are all been taken out of the solid waste. And I have a feeling that's gonna be pushing close to $5,000. So you're talking about $5,000 annually, you probably spent that much, or between $4,000 and $5,000 each year for the last number of years, just looking at that, because those roll-on, roll-offs, or those great big ones, are not cheap. And you have a
Right,
number of them.
and we paid those costs, and that's in addition to, we pay North Country a monthly fee based on a variety of services. One of the services was leaf and brush, okay? But if they had to, we also had to pay additional for every roll-off. We had to pay our own people for assisting and checking IDs, and those costs have not gone away. All I'm saying is, if you want to change the service that North Country is providing, which is possible, okay, that's going to be above and beyond their contract, which we need to change their contract. And it's true that not everybody uses it. Not everybody uses it now.
My feeling is that with the balance we have in solid waste and what we've been using out of it, we got $166,000 sitting there. We have $180-some thousand that owed solid waste by the general fund. So we're starting with a tremendous amount of dollars there in the solid waste and that. So I can't see putting additional costs to the customer in the township. I think we have adequate funds to cover it at this point in time. So I don't see any sense doing it. I think we just go ahead and do it and that, and take it out of solid waste and that. The money's there. That's my feeling.
Other comments? Pete, go ahead.
So Kurt, what you're saying is first Wednesday of the month is free and Saturdays are free.
Free to the customer, yes.
Right.
It costs us money.
Yeah. Are we gonna have somebody up there on Saturday to check this? Or they will?
For the spring and fall, the 10 days each,
Yeah.
yes.
But throughout the summer, will there be someone there on Saturdays? Or-
Not township personnel.
Not unless we change what we're doing right now.
That's
Right
what I'm
now,
trying-
right now, we've got the first Wednesday.
Pardon me?
Right now, we've got the first Wednesday.
First Wednesday?
Yep.
And what about a Saturday?
Saturday, they could go, it's gonna cost them $8.
The only thing
But that
people are-
doesn't go to us, it goes to North Country.
Right. But the people are telling me that they have to hold their yard waste for the first Wednesday unless they want to pay. Right? And
Or go to the landfill, or compost it, or
Right.
pay somebody else
That's what
to
they're
haul it.
saying. Okay, yeah. But most of them it's gonna talk about, we're talking 4 miles, and people in the area where I live here, it's gonna cost about 75 to 80 miles a year for running back and forth, right? Because you do it every week or every other week, and you get about 4 trailer loads when you're cleaning up your yard. So just wanna verify that. So-
Definitely right.
Pardon me?
You're right.
Yeah.
And that's a major cost of any of this, you know? That's a cost that we have to pay. So.
But our first Wednesday of the
I
month, I'm
agree.
gonna go up there
Doesn't make a
4
lot of sense.
times.
I wouldn't do it, but a lot of people choose to do that, so,
But if they go up there 4 times in the first Wednesday of the month, it's free.
yes.
Okay. Just want to get that also.
Manager Gerard?
Well, I think that question just got answered. Is I don't want to give the impression that it's free. Basically, the first Wednesday of the month is when it's free. Any other time, it is not free. The users have to pay. And yes, it's definitely an inconvenience not to have to travel, but there just simply is no other option closer in, unless we acquire property, which would be quite a bit more expensive. So,
Right, and
you know,
it's-
and basically what you have here is you have the impact. It goes back to the reason that we don't have the carrier that we had previously. Their rates went up so high because of the configuration of the township. Dead-end streets, you have to turn around, come back. It's time-consuming, it takes up a lot of time, and it's expensive for them to operate. So that's why what you're seeing here. I think there's some validity in the comments that have been made that, yes, there is. I think there are some offsetting savings as well. Ultimately, the folks at North Country will likely be the ones that will be checking the IDs. We will not have a staff person up there doing this forever. It'll ultimately be assumed by them. So it's not just an issue that we have, it's an issue that is everywhere. What do you do with your waste, and how do you get rid of it? So the landfill, although it is available, is probably not a good option for a lot of people. I don't know if any of you have been to the landfill and toured it. I encourage you to do so if you haven't. It is not it's not a comfortable or hospitable place to be. It just isn't the way it's laid out. It's a commercial landfill. It's not designed for residential folks hauling their brush and leaves there. So the system that we have right now is probably the least costly system that directly affects those that are directly using the service. That's pretty much it.
So, this was in response to some phone calls. Was it everybody in the community? No. There's people who use it on a real regular basis. There's people like me who never used it. So you know, it's about being responsive. I think Trustee Pompo brings up a good point. You know, 29 cents more on everybody's garbage bill, so that we can continue to offer additional options. Is it worth it? That's where the trade-off comes in as a board when we have to make those decisions. You know, Lynn pointed out, we offer it for free right now. It's just that you have to do it on Wednesdays. And so for some people, Wednesday wasn't the most convenient day. But for those people, they could go to the landfill on days when landfill's open, and it's free. Or if all of those things are a hassle, I mean, sure, you could do backyard composting, but if that's not an option, you can go there on other days. It's just that you have to pay $8 to drop off. You know, what's the trade-off? I understand that, you know, hey, we'll just pay the $5,000 out of somewhere, but just know that it comes out of, you know, solid waste. And at budget time, you're going to see the same increase. If we go with one of these, the increase is going to come from somewhere, and it's going to end up on their bills next year if it doesn't end up on there this year. We could do it for 1 year, but we should probably decide on what our long-term solution is. And again, we offer the service. It's free if you go on the first Wednesday of the month. And part of it is training. Nobody likes change. People are resistant to change. You look at, if you live in the city of Marquette, when do you get to go to the drop-off compost? It's controlled, it's fenced, you show your ID, and it's like on certain Wednesdays and Saturdays. It's not available 24/7, and yet somehow the city folks manage, because mostly of them coming out and dropping it off here 24/7, 365. You know, I'm more of the mind to say we looked into all the available options. They all come with a cost. We've determined that an additional $5,000 doesn't make sense to us at this point. We still offer the service. We know it's not as convenient, but you need to understand. I mean, and I think Ernie brings up a point. We're not having to spend as much man-hours on it when we're managing it out at North Country. This could actually end up bringing us in, still offer the service, but actually have a savings to our labor that gets charged off to solid waste. I mean, and bring our garbage bills down potentially. I think that's my thoughts on it, but does anyone care to make a motion, or what's the board's pleasure on dealing with this item?
Gratari had his hand up.
Just my comments on it. I probably would just like to let it lay for this year. Back when we first started this, we dropped things off at the Lions Field where the ice rink is. And of course, once that changed, we moved it over to the other site across from the old Township Hall. And there was a lot of complaints when we did that because it was on the other side of the highway. So I'm thinking Supervisor Limata is correct. The change of locations is causing some folks, you know, the change factor is causing some problems. But I think in the long run, because I've had people that have been out there and they said that's probably a better place to drop things off than where we were dropping them off, because it's a facility designed for that. And you don't have the problem with the traffic coming around the corner and safety issues with residents dropping things off and such. So I guess my suggestion would be is to let it go for this year. I mean, I can't see raising everyone's bill for 29 cents for, you know, 10% of the population, maybe 25% at the high point, because in all my years here, of course, I have a bigger lot. I can put my brush on one end of my lot, but the volumes we were getting over there, I mean, I think we had other folks using it, because I don't think Trowbridge Park generates full bins every day and 7 days a week, because you got to run out of stuff sooner or later. There's only so many leaves and brush. So my suggestion would be just to let it lay for this year, and we can tell the residents we looked into all options. We didn't think it's justifiable to raise everyone's bill 29 cents. And if they have any solutions that are better, we're all ears.
Do you want that in the form of a motion?
I don't think we have to, because we're not changing anything to the contract, so it's just, we're just gonna let it go.
Okay? Pete?
One comment, a resident asked me, he said, could you add a Saturday to that? First Wednesday and then a Saturday, because they have a hard time with everyone kind of busy in meetings and stuff on Wednesday. They have a hard time getting there on Wednesday. Could we add a Saturday? So I just throw that out.
We can, but
Well,
it'll
Saturday
come with
is
a
coming.
price tag.
I know.
And I've got one clarification for one of the options, and that is the landfill. It's true that it's probably not the safest place to be for individuals. However, contractors can also dispose of leaves and brush for free at the landfill. So, for example, if you have 4 loads of leaves and brush that you have to drive out to North Country one day a month, you know, you could hire a contractor to make one trip to the landfill. So, you know, pay his travel cost. So that, it's still an option. That's not as reprehensible as some people might think. I mean, obviously it's gonna cost, but theoretically it's gonna cost you less than doing it yourself.
Okay.
What was your address, Dennis?
Well, I think no motion is forthcoming. I think we've dealt with it as an informational item only, and we're going to leave it the way it is right now, Kirk.
All right.
Thank you. The next item on your agenda is 8C, update regarding the sale of our former township facilities manager, Gerard.
As the board directed, we have advertised the facilities, seeking proposals for the package sale of all 3 pieces, the garage, the former hall, and the 5 acres across the street. June 5th is the deadline for proposals coming in. We have not received any new proposals. We did have contacts from, well, a renewal of interest from one party and a new individual interested. However, no proposals have been received as of yet.
Thank you. Any questions for Manager Gerard on that? Seeing none, we'll move to the next item, 8D. Jason, approach the podium, please, and we're going to have a discussion about the Chamber of Commerce. As you know, Jason was here and spoke during public comment because we failed to get him on the agenda in regards to a request to consider membership in the new Marquette Chamber of Commerce. And he came back to have the conversation. Now, for us, you know, to join, by way of letting you guys know, I actually did have a meeting with Jason this morning, along with Supervisor Gary Walker from Chocolate Township and Mayor Mike Coyne from the city of Marquette, and had some discussion regarding the chamber. And I did tell Jason that I was going to ask him a question, so he had plenty of time to prepare his answer. And the bottom line question that I asked, and it was kind of like when we were approached with the Lake Superior Community Partnership, it's the same question I asked every time they approached us. What's my return on investment because I'm spending taxpayer money to join? And so we want to know, what do we get in return for being a member of the chamber? How do I look a resident in the eye and say this was a good spend because? Jason, take it away.
You want me to start there? What I say to all of our members is every member is going to get something different out of the chamber. You know, somebody who works off of leads referrals is going to get something out of networking. Somebody who works in retail is going to get something out of our buy local programs and things like that. Municipalities are really unique. There's 3 municipalities plus the county that we're working with. What the municipalities are going to get out of it, first and foremost, is a neutral third party that doesn't represent any one municipality, doesn't represent just the business community. It represents all of our members equally, and as municipalities being involved, our role is help facilitating conversation between those. Supervisor Limata just had mentioned the meeting that we had this morning between ourselves, Mike Coyne, and Gary Walker from Chocolate Township. And a point Mike Coyne brought up was pretty good. He's like, I know the people that I'm sitting at this table with, but if I had to name, you know, the elected officials from the neighboring municipalities, I would be kind of hard pressed to do that. And, you know, he knows many of you, but it's just not in his mind. And I feel the same with most elected officials. It's a lot of times we kind of sort of know the neighbors, but we don't continue an active dialogue with them. And so one of our roles is our time goes towards organizing that active dialogue about who we are as a community as a whole. Many of you know that I served on the city commission. And every time I use the word community, the other city commissioners would look at me and say, we're not a community, we're a city. You have to represent the city. And the chamber looks at it as a community. Most people outside of the community or who are new to the community don't know the differences between Chocolate, Marquette Township, and the city of Marquette. And so by supporting the chamber, you're supporting a neutral third party that can help negotiate some of those conversations when you have two parties on different sides of the fence that have to figure out a way to get through it. Because we represent both parties, as well as the business community as a whole, we can be that neutral third party. Along those lines, helping identify who you are as a municipality to both visitors and residents. We've discovered that there is no welcome packet for the area.
Mm-hmm.
So when people move to the area, they don't know where their kids go to school, where they pay their bills, where they're supposed to drop off their brush. And every municipality has their own website, but to navigate that and even figure out who your right municipality is, there's not a simple map in a welcome packet to say, here's the boundary. You know, when you move in, maybe a realtor can tell you, but the realtor should be able to have something that they can hand over. And that's one of our goals, is to be able to produce that so that people who are visiting and people who live here can easily find where their kids should go to school and where they pay their taxes without having to go and navigate. You know, more than likely they're going to go to Marquette City Hall or probably the courthouse because it's the most prominent. They're going to go there and ask questions and get redirected. So our goal is to be able to take some of that role. And then the third is really lowering the barriers to information. Each municipality that we will be working with has its own website and has things that, all of the things that you need your residents to know are there somewhere. But a lot of times, just like businesses, we tend to put it out there and then not look at how it's navigated or how people find it. And so one of the things we're looking at, if you look at the information sheet that I had passed out, is towards the bottom in the middle in the blue, the agenda monitoring. And this is something that on behalf of all of our members, we would be looking at every agenda that comes out from Marquette Township, City of Marquette, Chocolate Township, and the county. And this would be a process that all members can tell us what keywords they're interested in. So if you're interested in Westwood Mall, Commerce Drive, Presque Isle, Little Presque, it doesn't matter. You put in your keywords, we would actually scan digitally all of the documents that come out from each municipality and be able to inform all of our members when any of their keywords come up, even if it's something as simple as rubbish. So that if you put out an agenda with rubbish disposal on it, our members would, and they care about rubbish, our members would actually get an email saying, hey, just so you know, next Monday there's going to be a discussion on this issue. It was something that I discovered was lacking with the city because municipally we kind of know where things are, but a lot of residents don't. And so our goal is to try and help lower the barriers. And I'm not by any means saying that the municipalities aren't doing a good job, but it's, you know, we're here to help from the outside perspective. Those are the three things at the top of our chamber's list as what we think are the biggest returns on investment for municipalities to get involved. Beyond just the, we're going to be working with businesses and other organizations in your community, so we hope that there's support. But those are the three concrete.
Thank you. Questions
Certainly.
for Jason? Pete?
I know in the past, when I had my store in Harvey, and I joined the chamber, and I did benefit from being a member of the chamber, even though we belong to Chocolate Business Association
Mhm.
also. I did benefit from businesses from Marquette and stuff like that. So I can see the benefit of it. I would like to see the different, it's too late now with the name, but I discussed that with you already.
Certainly.
I would like to see the Marquette Area Chamber of Commerce, like, I think years ago they used to have it, but that's going back several years maybe. But I can see a benefit to it. I think we can use it by putting all the communities together, not only Marquette City and Chockley, Sands, you know, all of us together,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
One of the things that really amazed me, Delta Chamber of Commerce invited me down there, and they sponsor a meeting with their Economic Development Corporation, an elected official from, because their chamber represents the county. So it was the Chamber and Economic Development Corporation down there, and an elected official from every single municipality, somebody from Bay and somebody from the tribe. And they have a monthly, we'll just get together and chat. Let's let each other know what's on the radar. You know, the value of that kind of communication, it's hard to really put, you know, a dollar price tag on it. But for somebody to be able to organize that and keep everybody in the know of what's going on is really, I think, pretty important.
I think the information flow between the different communities and stuff like that is important. If you can manage that, it'd be worth it.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Any other questions regarding the chamber?
Lynn, go ahead.
So this would actually be more of a benefit to the township board staff than the community. I think that's where I was wrestling with reading this over and over and over. How does this help the residents? And that's what I don't see. I could see us joining maybe as just an organization.
Right.
You know, like MTA for information and helping us do our jobs better. But I don't see it really.
How it helps the residents as a
Yeah.
whole.
Unless they'd be invited to all the after hours and all the meetings, and I
Well,
don't know that would be.
Pretty much everybody is welcome to most of our events. There would be a different pricing structure based on if you're a member or not a member. The benefits really change depending on who you are and how you utilize the chamber. So the things that I listed off would be the return of investment for the organization of the township itself, but also working heavily with the business community. Our goal is to be their support structure. We're really not going to be an economic development agency. We believe all the businesses in our community are the economic developers, and we're their support structure. You know, we help them with communication and education on things that are important to them. So by helping the business community, that helps residents. The other thing is, for like the agenda monitoring program, community members can join at $75. And so they can sign up as well if they're interested in the benefits that we provide. The organization is supported primarily by memberships, which I think is something that chambers are often misunderstood about. It isn't a franchise that's supported by the National Chamber, the State Chamber. It's run solely on its programming and its membership. So, you know, if Marquette Township were to join, if a number of businesses in the township and residents of the township would join, they would all get something different out of it. And in some ways, it's almost run as a co-op. It's a member-based organization. So as the members tell us what's most important, we focus on that. I hope that helps answer some of the question.
Other questions? Ernie?
Like Pete had a comment too, and I wrote it on this, Marquette Chamber. I'd much rather see Marquette Area Chamber, because that's what you're representing. overall.
We absolutely are representing the area.
So, and I'll be honest with you, there's a number of people in Marquette Township, when you see Marquette Chamber, they're gonna turn themselves off, really, they want no part of it. 'Cause they feel it's only in one area, and that's the city of Marquette, that's it. And to be honest with you, I have the same feeling in that. So I'm a little leery of that title completely in that.
Understood. I hope we're judged by the work we do rather than the name that was chosen.
The title is out there and it will always be out there.
Mhm.
And that's what people are gonna look at. And we're trying to set our own identity here. And all of a sudden, we don't have an identity here. And that's the question I have with that. Now you're talking about consolidated community calendar. There's already one out there for the whole county at this point in time.
There
And
is?
The CCB has it.
Except that,
CBB.
Yeah, they
that
have
covers
one.
some
I
of,
use it.
that covers some of the recreational opportunities and some of the things that are happening in the community. But a lot of the arts community is left out, a lot of the recreation community is left out, 40 Below is left out, and a lot of municipal meetings are left out.
They're left out because they don't put in information into it. It's free.
Understood.
So, they're left out because they don't do the job that they're supposed to do to get the information in there.
Right, and we've talked to the CVB quite a bit about that.
So, and, so that's some of the questions I have, and also I'm the representative to the Marquette Township Business Association from the board, and what effect that'll have on it, because they are working with the businesses within the township and that. They have a website, they have a brochure, they hand out, they meet all the new businesses and that coming in and that too, so how is this gonna impact that association and that too, so?
Hopefully it makes them stronger.
Not when both of them are looking for financial support and that too, you got a problem there at the same time and that too, so. So I have some concerns with this at this point in time. Those are mine.
Understood. Thank
Other
you.
questions? So for clarification,
Certainly.
Jason, under the investment that it would require from Marquette Township, do I read it correctly? It would be under that sustaining memberships?
If you would like to look at the sustaining memberships at the $2,500 or $5,000 level, that would be terrific.
Or is
But-
it just under the membership
But we
investment of the
look at
nonprofits?
our membership investment, which is a standard membership. We look at municipalities and businesses the same. It would be based on your full-time equivalent employees. So you'd be, how many employees?
So we have 17 full-time employees, so that puts us in at $435.
For an annual investment, correct.
Okay. So we talk about spending $435 and what is a return on investment for $435 to get our $435 worth. I support the concept of the chamber, especially as it's a fledgling organization here. And, you know, part of it is we had Lake Superior Community Partnership, you know, as a economic development arm. They receive a amount of support from Marquette County to be the economic development arm for all of Marquette County, although I would argue that I don't believe that we have received the same amount of effort from the partnership as other communities may have. I can see some benefit with the chamber organization, and I think I would support it if the board moved in that direction. And I think primarily, you know, like Lynn said, what about the residents? And I would argue that if they act as a neutral ground for bringing elected officials together across the landscape here, there is some benefit to all of the residents by having those lines of communication opened up on a regular basis. Some of the conversation we had this morning involved perhaps setting a regular monthly meeting and having 2 elected representatives from every community, along with a couple members of the chamber, attend and make sure that you're changing that. We do a round robin and have different officials attend different meetings so that they can provide the input, get to know the other elected officials from other municipalities, and it would always be, you know, 2 different people going, so it's not the same person attending every time and reporting back. And I can see some benefit to that, if nothing else, knocking down some of those barriers between us and our neighboring governments. Like I said, last year there was a time where I went to a neighboring municipality because I'd watched their meeting on TV, and they're like, well, can we get the city manager to write a letter to the township to ask them if, I thought, man, is it that bad that we don't know each other enough to pick up the phone and call? And so I went to speak at their public comment and gave them my cell phone number and said, please feel free to call me anytime. I mean, you know, and I think Mayor Coyne brought up a great point this morning. He said, you know, I look at the boards of Chalk Lake Township and Marquette Township, and I'd be hard-pressed to tell you who sits on them. I don't know. He said, I probably should. And, you know, I used to know all of the city commissioners and have had dealings with the city commissioners, but the current seated board, there's a couple of individuals that I've never interacted with, don't know them, never met them, haven't communicated, and I think there could be some benefit from that, and that would be my thoughts on it.
I forgot one other thing. If we move in this direction, what's your thoughts on quarterly reports, financial reports to the membership and that?
Memberships will absolutely receive an annual report, and that's what the board has committed to right now. Quarterly, I'm happy to bring that up with the board as far as putting this out. I don't have any problems putting out quarterly reports. One of the key things that our board is working on right now as our memberships come in, you guys know that we are a starting organization, is communicating with all of the members to find out what metrics each of our members wants. because everybody pulls something different out of it, so that we can make sure that municipalities get the information that they're looking for out of our performance, as well as our business members get the same kind of information. Yeah, I mean, I report to my board regularly. I would be comfortable with doing that.
Pete?
Just what happened this morning, the meeting between the three, Chalkley, Marquette, and Marquette Township is, what we've been through for the last couple of years, maybe we could have seen some benefits out of something like that, instead of butting heads all the time. You said, I said, one of those things, and I think I can see the value of something like that, very much so, and it's, I think it'll work, and I think it'll be a benefit to us. Just for Dennis to sit down with the mayor of Marquette and Chalkley and discuss small things, what's going on, and, keep us all aware of what's going on here, so, thank you.
Felt some of those meetings in the past, but having a neutral party bring it together seems to take that onus off, that it's a city meeting, or it's a township meeting, or it's a meeting about roads or something specific. It's more of a, hey, this is a neutral party meeting, and we're all just invited to attend and do something. So
Right.
that's right. I think I see some synergy, as well as them being willing to provide some information out in our community to new members of the business community or somebody moving in. I think I can see a benefit to that as well. So, board's pleasure.
So many times we've had a business opening in the township here, we never see any of us at there, any of our township officials. Very few times have I seen Randy or Dennis in the picture, and I think this could be changed with the Chamber of Commerce.
Certainly.
Marquette Area Chamber of Commerce. Oh,
Marquette County Chamber of Commerce?
Oh, Gina, the Greater Ishpemingani is doing a wonderful job, and has been a huge help. So we work together for the county.
So is there a motion from anyone on the board? Pete?
I'll make a motion that we join the Marquette Area Chamber of Commerce for $435.
We have motion and support. Further discussion?
No, are we considered nonprofit?
Well, we're definitely nonprofit.
So is there a 20%?
I was going to say, I think a lot of our businesses could probably claim nonprofit as well.
I'm just reading off the top of that.
Understood. Neither of the other municipalities that have joined have taken advantage of the 20%, but I understand the point of the question.
Someone would say
Had to
something.
throw it out there, right?
Someone would say something to me if I didn't bring it up.
Understood.
Other comments? Seeing none, you have a motion and a second to join the Marquette Area Chamber of Commerce for $435.
They just won't let me live it down.
We have to state the real.
The Marquette Chamber of Commerce for $435. All is in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, Jason.
Trustees, thank you. I'm always
When can we
available to
expect
you.
the first
When's
report?
our first meeting?
Well, we launched 1 month ago, so in 2 more months. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item on your agenda is 9A, the Stormwater Management Ordinance and presentation by Stan Tech on the first reading of the proposed Stormwater Management Ordinance. Superintendent Page.
Back in 2003, the Marquette Township started looking at stormwater management. We actually retained a consulting firm, Ayers, Lewis, Norris and May, to first of all do a study and analysis and mapping of the watersheds in the western part of the township, which is basically our developing area. We also asked the question, should we construct like regional detention basins, and should we construct storm sewers? We also looked at some best management practices for achieving stormwater management, and we also looked at some sample ordinances at that time. And the answer, so all the work was done. The answer to the stormwater system construction was no at that time. So we elected not to construct regional detention or construct pipes to collect and convey stormwater. from point A down to the water bodies. Shortly after that, the Conservation District actually did an excellent study, and they were looking at the water quality, stormwater-related water quality issues, soil and sedimentation issues as a result of all the development in Marquette Township. And of course, within their study, they referred to the previous study that the township had already had done. And then a number of years passed, and the township didn't really proceed too much other than, I believe there is a reference in zoning ordinance now, just kind of a general statement that there will be no stormwater discharge on any developed property greater than, pre-development. And of course, the other agencies, like the Road Commission, for example, have their own rules and ordinances. We do have an established drain district in Marquette Township, actually 2 drain districts in Marquette Township. And of course, that agency has their own rules and regulations. And 2 or 3 years ago, the state started offering grant assistance to develop stormwater management ordinances. So we applied for that, and as it turns out, we didn't get that grant, but we'd already started the process of looking at stormwater management. And another instigator was there were issues that were becoming apparent to the people in the field that were dealing with stormwater management. Like I said, there were different agencies involved, and frequently all the agencies would meet and discuss issues that were occurring, which was submittals had to be made to even get zone compliance for stormwater management. Then a system would be constructed, maybe or maybe not, it would comply with whatever had been submitted. But once it was in, end of story. There was no long-term requirement or any requirement at all for long-term maintenance of these systems, which for the most part are on private property. So issues develop over time. So we revisited it, and actually jointly with some of these other agencies, there was basically a team assembled, including Jason McCarthy, township planner, Jim Iwaniki and Kurt Tavola from the County Road Commission, Mike Farrell, the drain commissioner, DEQ, Mike Cucci, who is the stormwater regulator in the UP, and Renee Leo from Conservation District, along with the new soil erosion sedimentation control folks, which are now based out of resource management, Mr. O'Donnell and Mike Prater have been the primary contacts there. And of course, again, we've had the assistance of Stantec, and also I neglected to mention our own attorney, Roger Zappa, who did the final review, which just recently got completed. So we're going to have a presentation now about what we're doing and why we're doing it and what we hope to achieve. So.
Thank you.
Hello, Spencer Kane from Stantec. Like Kirk said, I'd like to just give a brief overview of the stormwater ordinance, what the goals were, and how we went about it. And I'll start right in with the goals. Kirk gave a pretty good introduction of the reasons and behind developing the ordinance. Now, the first thing that the ordinance is designed to do is to give the township authority for requiring minimum design standards for stormwater plants. in addition, it provides the township the authority to enforce stormwater regulations during construction as well as after by providing a mechanism to ensure sustainable storm system maintenance. And along with this, in order to pay for it, there's a fee schedule, we call it Schedule A, with the stormwater ordinance that allows the township to recoup costs for administration and enforcement. As Kirk said, there are several other county agencies involved with stormwater maintenance as well as soil erosion control. When we first started looking at this, soil erosion control was potentially on the table. That's something that the township wanted to look at. But as we got into the process, in talking with Jim O'Donnell and Mike Prater, who are now handling the enforcement of the soil erosion control, we decided to let them take the reins on that and allow this ordinance to basically back that up and try to make that try to just reinforce the requirements. And the same could be said about the county drain commissioner. His regulations are they're very good, but there were some additional areas that we thought could be helpful in the community. And I'll go into some of the ways that we bolster those other county efforts later on in the presentation. So like Kirk said, we had several stakeholders involved with this process, township utilities and planning, county drain commissioner, the resource management, doing the soil erosion control, the road commission, DEQ, county conservation district, who is formerly the soil erosion control enforcement agency, and also finally township legal counsel. Now, developing this ordinance, we held 2 stakeholder workshops. Initially, we all met and just discussed what everyone's goals were, and got a good feeling for where we thought the gaps were, where we needed the efforts. And then we went to the drawing board and came back for another meeting with the stakeholders after they had been given the documents to review. And we got their comments, and we had a workshop, and we sat down and discussed what revisions we thought would be needed. Now, someone off the street might think stormwater ordinance, well, how can we control rain? Well, the answer is we can't control rain, but we can control where it goes and how it gets there. Now, some reasons for controlling stormwater is, first and foremost, adequate drainage and protection of that drainage minimizes harmful impacts of stormwater runoff. These can include flooding as well as pollution loading, erosion of stream banks, and much more. Now, with proper planning, however, developments can do their part to help protect natural resources by keeping water clean and also saving land from unnecessary disturbance. Now I'll go into the meat of the ordinance and what it contains. So the backbone of the ordinance is to require the developer to provide a stormwater management plan. And the requirement for a stormwater management plan, we all decided in our discussion that it was appropriate to tie that to site plan plat approval. So any development that requires site plan or plat approval should also require a stormwater management plan and get approval for that. And that's not to say that those processes would have to happen one after the other. I guess the vision would be that the Planning Commission doing their review and the stormwater management reviewers of the township are working concurrently and communicating. So I spoke previously about how the ordinance reinforces county rules. And one of the ways is by requiring soil erosion and sedimentation control planning within all stormwater management plans. That's not to say that the county enforcing agency, being resource management, would not still have the authority, the ultimate authority in regulating soil erosion control, but with the Part 91 of the soil erosion control regulations, if a site is less than an acre or more than 500 feet from a waterway, it's exempt from the requirement for a soil erosion control permit. What this ordinance does is says that it closes that gap. So if the development does not require a or a soil erosion control plan based on county rules, well, they still need to provide a plan based on best management practices within their stormwater management plan. And also, like I said, the county drain commissioner rules, they are ultimately govern, but portions of this ordinance do go a step further, and we feel that's good for the environment and the community. The ways that it reinforces the county drain commissioner rules. First off, the ordinance as written requires infiltration of the first half-inch of rain. This is commonly known as the first flush rain event, and it's called that because when it starts raining, that first half-inch of rain has been shown to carry the highest pollutant loading. Any of the oils and sediments and pollutants that are sitting on the surface, when the rain hits, it collects all that and washes it downhill, basically, and into your streams and waterways, ultimately. Now, understandably, the township has pockets of sand as well as significant bedrock, so infiltration will not be possible everywhere, and that's understandable. So this ordinance addresses that by requiring developments to just provide infiltration testing to either show, can the soil accept the water or can it not? And the big reason for requiring infiltration, several reasons, is first off, it mimics nature, and this and I have that graphic of the water cycle, and mimicking nature is very helpful to the community. It replenishes the groundwater. Like I said, by infiltrating the first half an inch of rain, you're going to be able to remove pollutants from that runoff before it gets to the streams. by infiltrating into the soil, bacteria and also chemical processes can grab some of that pollution out of there. And potential bonuses to developers are actually that if they can infiltrate and show that they can infiltrate stormwater, that can reduce the detention requirements for their property. And this also increases the potential developable land. So another way it reinforces the county rules is in those detention basins like I was discussing. The county rules require for developments that are regulated by the county drain commissioner rules, in the drainage district jurisdiction, the detention ponds are required to hold a 100-year storm. Outside of that, the requirements are for a 50-year storm. And we felt it was appropriate to just make it a 100-year storm design for across the board, not just limited to those within a drainage district. And also, the staged bottom draw discharge, which sounds fancy, but really what that is when you have a pond of storm water and it's sitting there, in order to not impact the quality of your cold water trout streams, as I know that's a big pull for people around here. The staged bottom draw makes sure that the water that comes out of the pond comes from the bottom first, so it's not the top foot or so of water that's been heated by the sun as it sits there. Now, to be able to enforce this ordinance, there has to be provisions for administration. And the plan will be reviewed by the administrator. Someone will be designated within the township as the administrator, who and the township will decide whether the the stormwater management plan is of a complexity level that they feel comfortable reviewing it themselves, or would need to hire an outside consultant. Based on the results of that review, if that stormwater management is approved, a permit would be issued for construction. In order to pay for these efforts, there would be a flat administrative fee for applying for stormwater plan approval, as well as a review and inspection escrow deposit that the township would hold, and that would be based on the construction cost, an engineer's estimate of construction cost for that plan, and that review and inspection escrow would be used to pay for any of the review costs of the township staff or consultants, as well as during construction paying for periodic visits to the site for the inspection. And like Kirk said, that's, you know, a plan is only so good, but it has to be built that way to operate properly. And that brings us to the next step, which is enforcement. Now, as a part of this ordinance, construction permit is required, so no building can happen until the construction permit is issued based on site stormwater plan approval. And then periodic inspections during construction ensure that that plan is built. Also within the ordinance is the civil infraction for any violation of the ordinance, as well as the township has the ability to recoup equitable remedies if there are violations and the township feels that they need to correct them. Now, as far as the ultimate enforcement, sustainable enforcement is driven by the maintenance agreement. And this maintenance agreement would establish the maintenance requirements for these stormwater management plan, as well as requiring records of maintenance and inspection that's required to be performed at least an annual basis. And those records would come to the township for review, just to ensure that the maintenance is happening. And if it's not, there's a deadline there's an annual deadline in the maintenance agreement, that if these records aren't provided and inspection has not been taking place, then the township would send a notice and inspect or maintain them if they felt that was necessary. And then those costs would be borne by the developer or the ultimate owner of the land who has signed the maintenance agreement. Now, as a supplement to the ordinance, I've also created and put together a low-impact development design guide. And it's outside of the ordinance. It's just a FYI for contractors or the township or anyone who would want to, anyone who had any questions about what the best way is to design these infiltration facilities and how to get rainwater in the ground. And like I said, there's a requirement for infiltration testing of the site, and I describe a couple approved methods in that guide that are tested and can give a good idea of the capability of the soil to take on water. Like I said, this design guide also details best practices for infiltration facilities, rain gardens, bioswales, dry wells. Some of them you may have heard of, some you may not have. Rain gardens, infiltration facilities, basins, trenches. Rain gardens are probably one of the more popular for small scale buildings. It's essentially a nice looking garden that has engineered soil that is open graded so it can take the water and infiltrate it into the ground. There's also, for small sites, there's possibility of dry wells, which just handle downspout runoff. And also bioswales and filter strips. Filter strips are nothing really more than just a buffer of grass and vegetation along your waterways to make sure you're not getting sand and materials and pollutants into your waterways from direct runoff. And bioswales are really the ditches that we all know that have the vegetation in the bottom to slow runoff velocity, as well as in the added component of permeable soils to allow water to infiltrate from that ditch as well. And those are just some examples of the low impact design elements that are in that guide. And that is the presentation. So if anyone has any questions about the ordinance or anything, go ahead.
Any questions? Questions, Ernie?
Going through this, I got about 3/4 of the way through it, and I says, I'm no engineer. I'm trying to read this and understand it. And it's out of my category completely. And then I got to the end, I says, who's our hydraulic engineer in the township that's gonna go through here and look at all this stuff and that? Because that's what you're gonna have to have. You can make information in, but if you don't have it, we're gonna have to hire out somebody in that. Sure, there's fees here and that, but we have to have someone on staff that knows what's going on too. So, the question I raise is, how much problems have we had to generate this, to cause this to happen at this point in time, and the new buildings and everything else? I know there's been some runoff in that, and new buildings have taken care of some of that, but I don't know if we need to go this deep. Here again, I'm not the engineer or anything else. I'm just trying to understand all this at this point in time. That's where I'm standing at. Because I look at the costs here. Is this going to kind of scare some people away when you look at the estimated construction costs? 50,000 up for one level, of 50 to 250,000, or over 250,000. You got a lot of dollars that people are going to have to spend before they even turn a shovel of dirt in that. So these are questions I'm raising at this point in time. And maybe that we have to do it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, those figures that you're referring to, the 50,000 up to 250,000, those would be the brackets of the construction cost, which then is reflected by a percentage into the escrow deposit. And that escrow deposit would pay for, if the township does decide that they want a staff member to be that engineer to do those reviews, that's their decision. But also that review escrow is perfectly usable for hiring a consultant to do the review. As far as the requirement and the onus for making this ordinance push, I can just cite one example from the drain commissioner in our discussion was one of the creeks, I forget the name of the creek, and Mike said that every year they pull 1 to 2 dump truck loads of sediment out of that creek. And that's annual. And that does not even account for the maintenance that's not done that Kirk was talking about. I should be clear that this ordinance is only effective moving forward. It's not retroactive, so this is really a proactive measure for our development moving forward.
Yeah, I could maybe elaborate a little bit further. They haven't, the issues that have been occurring were established in that previous report by the Conservation District. There are in fact being impacts to the local streams as a result of development, which is causing stormwater runoff and soil erosion and sedimentation. In terms of the specific issues, the current enforcers, the county drain commissioner and the soil erosion folks, have both expressed concerns that they feel because everything is disjointed. Okay, so you got the drain commissioner over here, you got the soil erosion people over here, you got the township over here, and of course we had nothing, and they had rules and regulations, but they felt that they didn't have much authority to enforce those. So, so as I said, maybe they got whatever was required got constructed correctly, and maybe it didn't. And then of course there's everybody also expressed an interest in the long-term maintenance. Even if it was constructed correctly, that's the end of the story. Construction. You know, property changes hands, the new owner, you know, may or may not maintain what he's got. Chances are they won't, especially if they possibly don't even know anything about it. You know, so and the question about hiring a hydraulic engineer, that's not necessary. Nothing's going to change really from the administration standpoint, other than we're going to have an ordinance, and you can have a staff person administer the ordinance, but the review is going to be exactly the same as it is now, which is most likely going to be the drain commissioner's engineer. And once he retires, and you know, the drain commissioner would probably choose another person, that we would probably choose the same person. And the only difference being we would recoup 100% of our cost, you know. So that's hopefully going to answer some of your questions. Another thing is I didn't mention before is we did initially, you know, years ago, consider becoming a stormwater utility. But we have decided not to take that step for a couple of reasons. If you do that, first of all, it's a whole other layer of regulation. Okay, so that's, if you're a utility, that means you are constructing stormwater systems. So you become the owner, the operator, the maintainer, and there's a whole other level of regulation that you got to meet. Secondly, there are some legal issues. You know, the communities that have established utilities have basically been suing and appealing that decision, and they've actually won in some cases. So at least at the state Supreme Court level, they have ruled that you know, you can't necessarily just do that. And the reasoning is, okay, how have you been dealing with stormwater for hundreds of years, and then suddenly you started building systems and charging fees, you know, so that's why we're not going to charge like the city of Marquette. They went utility route. So everybody in the city gets a bill based on some factor, usually impervious surface, just a monthly bill. In this case, it's only, the only fees are gonna be charged, or whatever it costs us to review and approve and inspect these projects. So that's all we're doing is recouping our costs. So you won't get a bill for stormwater management.
Looking at construction costs, now if I understood right in your presentation, that residential under an acre would not be affected? Something like that?
Well, if residential under an acre is required to, or maybe you could answer this question.
Yeah, I can answer that. The requirement is really driven by, does that site development, if it's under an acre, does Jason and the planning commission require site plan or plat approval? And if that's the case, then it needs a stormwater management plan regardless of the size. As far as residential developments, certainly subdivisions would be covered by this because that's one developer, of course, and
I was talking about, say an individual purchased a lot that was under 1 acre. Does that individual have to go through all this and that? And who would make that determination whether they'd have to have a stormwater plan?
well, like I said, it's just directly driven by if site plan is approved, if site plan approval is required by the township. And if that approval is required, then yes, a stormwater management plan would be required.
Go ahead, Lynn.
This kind of seems like overkill to me. If the drain commissioner and the conservation district are already overseeing this, why would they not have enough authority to enforce this? Are they looking for extra help with their budget or their manpower that they want us to have an ordinance too?
Kirk, you want to take that?
Yeah. The drain commissioner only has authority, established authority, recognized authority within the drain districts. So basically, most of our new development, the western commercial half of the township is not inside a drain district, so therefore, the township has been using the drain commissioner for stormwater management review. But without any.
Wouldn't it be better just to
without
continue
any-
that then?
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't it be better just to continue that? Or just as advantageous?
Well, he doesn't have the authority to do that. I mean, we have allowed him to do the review because it's kind of a technical thing, okay? But there's no township.
We don't have an ordinance to enforce
Correct.
it.
There's no backing other than, because it's outside a drain district.
Okay. I
So if
just
you think
assumed he
about-
did the whole county, but apparently he doesn't.
No, only in drain districts.
It's a county agency, but not.
Okay.
If you think about the amount of development that we've had in the township, and I think if you talk to like Carl Lundquist, Spear Watershed Partnership, you talk about the amount of runoff that we have generated from our development out here, and we don't think much of it, like where does it go? What happens with all the salt, the sand, the debris that piles up over the winter, and then we start getting rains, it washes off. Where does it go? It's ending up in our water. It's going down to all of our watersheds and draining down. When they talked about the amount of sediment that comes out of those watersheds, so we're having a big impact. Marquette Township is having a big impact on it. So what does this ordinance really do for us? Bottom line, like what does it do? Ernie's concerned, is it adding too much to the cost, or, is it enforceable? We never want to put an ordinance on the books that we don't enforce. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. So, is it enforceable? Yes, it is. How do we enforce it? Well, part of it is developer comes in and he wants to do something. We're going to have escrow aside on it. Does it increase their initial building costs? Yes, it does. But for a good cause. We have to protect those water systems. We have to protect that watershed. And that's what it's for. It's really designed to give us an ordinance that now has teeth in it. It's enforceable. and we can enforce it. So do they have a maintenance plan? Like they said, somebody could come in and build it, and the drain commissioner looks at it and they build it, and we all applaud ourselves that there, we're protecting our water streams. But it's never maintained, and there's no follow-up to it, and there's no way to enforce it if we went to look at it. How do we fix that? And that's why Kirk's been talking about it for a long time about getting this ordinance in place. I think he said 2003, but I know since I've been here, we've had many conversations about it. And I think, is it important enough to this board to move an ordinance forward, knowing that what the impact is about, we're all about our clean water here and our watersheds and protecting them. Eventually, this stuff goes out into Lake Superior. It's bad enough, the impact on our streams. And we've got many little trout streams in this local area that are impacted by runoff. Is that important to us? It is to me. Will this ordinance fix everything? Nothing's that easy, but I think it's easy to get wrapped around the axle with everything that's in here. But ask yourself, should we do something? It's designed to bolster what the drain commissioner is doing, what the soil erosion people are doing. It's not designed to replace. It's not designed to, we're going to have our standalone or we're putting a third layer on. It's there to support what these guys are doing and making it now applicable across Marquette Township, not just in the drain commissioner's areas, in those zones. It's actually, now we've got the ability to have the ordinance, it applies everywhere, and it's enforceable. Ernie?
How is this going to affect our road project? Because when you look at this here, you got water coming down the roads and that, and where's it going? Maybe I've lived in one place too long on Fair Avenue and that, and I've seen what's happened there. It was fine when I first moved in there because we didn't have the curbing or anything else in there, and the water came down and it percolated into all the ground longer before it even got to the road. As they built it up and they put the curbing in, you got a runway of water whenever we get rain right straight down into Badger Creek. There's no question about that. And I don't know how you're going to solve that at this point in time. So,
Well, I mean, in response to that comment, I would say that, like I mentioned previously, it's not, this ordinance cannot be a retroactive document. So the problems that you see are the problems that we're trying to prevent with this ordinance.
understand that. But as we move forward with our road project, into 16, 17, and 18, if this becomes a ordinance, now those road projects are going to have to address what's in this here, which means it could increase the costs of those road projects. I don't know. I'm just bringing up questions at this point in time.
I can, you're already in an established drain district, so.
I know that. I know
and
that.
Improvements have been made by the drain commissioner that have been partially funded by the township. So, the southernmost 5 or 6 blocks of Ontario are going to be upgraded by the county road commission. In conjunction with that, the county drain commissioner is going to be installing some storm sewers to help alleviate some of those issues. Plus, the Badger Drain District in particular, of which you're part of, was actually designed to include the existing ditches and culverts that are out there, okay, were designed to comply with stormwater management concerns. Now, whether that happened or not, it's a matter of, debate possibly, but, part of the issue of that, and the county's road commission still has an issue with that. So if the existing ditches in the Badger Drain are part of the Badger Drain, which is owned by the county road commission, where's the maintenance? Every system requires maintenance. Okay, so obviously the county is saying, well, we can't maintain Trowbridge ditches. Well, that's what more can we do about that, you know? Because it's already an existing documented situation, it's already regulated, it's already constructed, and that's, you know, we can't go back. Certainly I believe the County Road Commission would like us to step in, but then we'd be back to, how's it possible for us to do that without creating our utility, okay, which would require great construction cost, you know? And again, that means I would start having to bill everybody for stormwater management, and that's, and like I said, I have not made that decision, and if you want to go that route, then certainly you can, but I'm just trying to explain that's what the situation is, so.
Pete?
I'm concerned about the storm, the collections and not cleaning them out, and we got that problem now, so just,
I understand,
you know, like you said, the county's not cleaning them out, they don't have time to do it. It's not our road, so we're not part of the utility, we don't have a utility to clean them out. And that's just, and people are making their own little detours along the way on some of these streets and that, so with the railroad ties and bricks and stuff like that, and just forces the problem down farther. So it's a hard decision, you know, what the heck to do with it and how are we gonna do it, and I don't know.
Dennis? Oh, sorry.
Katie, go ahead.
I believe when we did talk to the engineers on the road project, they said that they would probably be using their best practices within their budget to control stormwater from the roads. So it's, I mean, they're not gonna like bid curbing and such, which isn't gonna raise their price that much, but I think they're gonna do their best they can when they do redo the roads to make sure that stormwater is, you know, is taken care of. And I think that was part of, they understand that, and I think that's what they want to do within our budget that we've given them.
Lynn first, and then I see it only Randy.
Oh, I'm just wondering if just the Trowbridge area around all those creeks and everything are covered right now, and so is it just from pretty much there west that we don't have drain commissioner authority? So anything new, I'm wondering how much of how big of an area are we talking about that we're having the ordinance for? And if the majority of it is grandfathered in, what good does that do? We can't change anything. I mean, other than the few projects we'd have going forward. I'm not saying this is a bad thing or a waste of time. I'm just wondering
But it would impact
what kind of
all
an
new
impact.
construction moving forward, no matter where it is, what district it's in.
But it won't do anything for anything that we
It's
have
not
now.
retroactive, but
Right.
anything that gets.
And the main thing that's missing now would be, you know, maintenance agreements. And it's not that big a deal. I actually, even though we didn't have an ordinance, it was the auto parts store at Commerce and 41, if you're the name by now, AutoZone. I did request from their engineers to provide us with easements and a maintenance plan, and they did. So it's common practice, especially for the type of development that we're getting, which is, you know, the big box, you know, the chain restaurants, that sort of stuff. Because they do this all over the country. This is not, you know,
Unique to
something
us.
that we just invented here.
Manager Gerard?
My issue had been addressed, but I just wanted to dovetail on Clerk Rattari is that, you know, we're not going to be, in the design of the roads, it's not going to be stormwater management per se as much as it is channeling the runoff water to its natural places that it's supposed to be going, as opposed to just letting it run off to the sides of the roads and eroding.
Right, and in recent years, the county, as they reconstruct roads, they have been, at least at intersections, trying to deal with, you know, stormwater. You know, they have been putting in curb and gutter, some limited piping, catch basins, in order to channel the water where they really want it to go, and to, you know, help alleviate some of the damages that would occur, so.
Go ahead, Ernie.
Limited funds.
Going back in time, back in the 90s when I was on the board before, where Starbuck is in that area there, didn't they have an underground retention that they built there?
They did.
Okay.
That's a
so-
prime example of one that's not working, because it's
And-
not maintained.
I don't know how you maintain that or how you oversee it, or that's another question. It's all underground, so.
Right. Well, it's pretty simple. I mean, they're basically just underground tanks, and you need access ways, and you need, safe entry methods, and it's just inspection and then cleaning, sucking the sand out. But that's not done, so. And then, of course, a big one is MDOT. MDOT they probably generate the majority of runoff in the township. But they have already constructed their systems, so, again, we can't go back to the state and say, well, why don't you start paying? Now, we could actually, everybody does pay their share in these larger projects. For example, the Badger Drain project, the county did chip in. And I think MDOT did too, because it went across 41. So everybody pays their share, so. But again, our team feels that that's what you're talking about. It's really outside the scope of what we're attempting to do. We're trying to reinforce existing efforts. We're trying to basically create a local ordinance that's going to beef up other ordinances. We would be the point of contact so that, make sure everybody's on the same page, and, so we're not changing what's existing. We're just trying to make it better. That's all we're trying to do, without charging, individuals in the community for this work that's being performed. And most of it is on private property of the big new developers, so.
Then,
So who do we see administering this then? Does it fall to Kirk's department? And he would be, even though he's not an engineer, he'd be the person coordinating whatever needs to be
It would be
done,
administered through
whether,
Department of Public Works, and whoever the superintendent is, whether it's Kirk or later down the road, would be administered from his office.
and if we had to hire somebody for a certain thing,
We recoup
they
our
would take
costs.
care of it.
Right.
Okay.
So, this is a first reading, there's no action required today. I mean, it is gonna come before us again, but we wanna make sure everyone has a good understanding so that you know what questions to ask to get your questions answered moving forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I also would like to add to what Kirk was saying, that it's important to note that this ordinance is not unique. All of these big box stores, they are surprised when they don't have to comply to something like this, because all over the country they have to comply to it, all over the state. And the places that have stormwater ordinances, many places downstate, townships have stormwater ordinances, and they don't have nearly the natural resources to protect. I mean, it's beautiful up here, and I think that your residents cherish that beauty and the natural resources, and I think that it's appropriate to try and protect that any way you can.
Thank you. Anything else? Like I said, it'll be for you again. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work. Next item on your agenda is 9B,
Don't we have to have a motion on this first reading?
to accept it as a first reading.
You can, but you don't. It's a first reading. The second reading will be the actual adoption. So it's just informational right now for the next 2 weeks till our next meeting. So I would suggest if you have any questions to, get them to Kirk, because with that next meeting, that will be the final adoption.
The next item on your agenda is 9B, consider the amendment to the intergovernmental agreement of the Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority. What you have in your packet is a communication from Solid Waste Management. And what it says in here is that they're proposing to amend the intergovernmental agreement whereby the requirement that the director have a bachelor's degree in engineering be eliminated. The logic behind this isn't because they specifically have one candidate in mind. There's actually other candidates. But the reality behind it was they're looking for somebody who has more of a management background as opposed to an engineering background. They want a professional manager to manage the authority. And that was really why they're looking at, do we make the requirement that it's a bachelor's degree in engineering, or will we look at other candidates? And that's why it's here. So that's why it's in front of you tonight, and they're asking that we would adopt it as a resolution. Board member comment? Lynn?
I saw that in the paper, that one of the reasons they were really pushing for this is because they didn't have any candidates who did have engineering degrees. So I think that that authority needs some strong direction, and I'm glad to hear that that's the reason. So I would make that motion to support this.
Support.
We have motion and support to support the resolution offered. Any comment or questions?
Would they add or?
Well, I think they just remove, if you have one, it doesn't necessarily knock you out. It just says you don't have to have it as a minimal requirement. Seeing no other questions, Clerk Rattari?
The motion maker is Trustee Durant.
Yes?
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Pombo?
Yes.
Trustee Truscott?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Limata.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you. And you will get that information over to,
I'll get the original and type it in, and I will get it to them ASAP.
thank you. Next item on your agenda is 9C, consider establishing the lateral benefit charges for the 2015 sewer projects. You do have a transmittal in your packet dated May 28th from Superintendent of Public Works Kirk Page, just discussing the, setting the amount of the lateral benefit charges for Marquette Township for the construction for this year. His recommendation is that there is no change from last year, and that the lateral benefit charge for wastewater collection system projects remains at $22.17 per equivalent front foot, the same as last year. Board member questions, comments, motions? Ernie?
Reading through this, I can see where he's going in that, then a couple things jumped out at me. They don't have a final engineering estimated cost because the reviewers have been placing special conditions on the project. So, taking that and then looking down at 2217, using the same figure as that, the question I have in my mind is, the estimated costs are gonna, what if they come above this 2217 in that? What's gonna happen in that? So who's gonna absorb the differential of dollars in that? So,
Superintendent Page?
It would be the township. The township already had a policy from our previous board of taking 15% off the top anyway, so no matter what the cost was. And as I mentioned, it's extremely difficult to keep changing, during a project. Last year, we kept extending because people kept saying, well, we need it, we need it, we need it. At some point, obviously, we had to stop, but the point being, I had to change every time.
only question, do you think this 2217 will be sufficient throughout the year?
Yeah, I don't think we've got two projects this year, and there's one difference is the South Van Boom project is going to include some gravity portion on Brookton Road, which is obviously, that's usually a little bit higher cost. Everything else should be more or less the same. And I think in general, the costs have been going up. And of course, we haven't bid yet, so I can't say for sure. I don't think this year they've taken a big leap up, because there are lots of factors. We're not involved so much in asphalt replacement as obviously the road project is, so there probably won't be that big of a decrease, but I think we're going to be good.
That's all I can
It's
vote.
not worth, to me, it's not worth the hassle. I mean, it's just,
I'm fine.
Okay, other questions or comments? Seeing none, would anyone care to make a motion to approve his request?
Second.
Motion and support to approve Superintendent Page's request to maintain the lateral benefit charge at $22.17 per equivalent front foot for 2015. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Next item on your agenda is 9D, the assessor's review of the AMAR audit process. Hi, Dulcie. Thanks for being so patient. You guys, as by way of
We get to ask her questions?
all of them you want. By way of why I put this on the agenda for this evening is because if you guys remember talking about the 14-point review, and I'm sure during the MTA conferences that you've been, you remember the old 14-point review, and everybody was like, oh, you don't want a 14-point review. The last thing you want is to get the 14-point review. Well, the good news is there's no longer a 14-point review. The bad news is they just changed the name. It's the AMAR review. Marquette County has been selected for AMAR reviews this year, and it's kind of a big deal. Dulcie's got a lot on her plate. We really have to move forward with this. There's a lot of moving parts, and I asked her to just come in and briefly, I wanted the board to understand just how important this is to us. It's really an opportunity, and I did have in your mailboxes earlier last week just the copy of the article from one of the Michigan Voice magazines about assessing your assessor, and they touched briefly on the AMAR audit. And I really wanted to have Dulcie come in and just kind of walk us through a little bit about what she's faced with as we approach this AMAR audit. Dulcie, take it away.
We were really hoping that we wouldn't be picked for the AMAR review until next year. We are required to visit 20% of properties within the township to do a field inspection, which requires us to list, catalog, measure, take into account any improvements, any structures, make sure that we have the appropriate legal descriptions, that what the taxpayer is being taxed on is a pure representation of what we have in the records. So that way we don't have people paying taxes on too much, or in what we have been finding in the areas we had already completed our review, not paying the appropriate taxes on what they had. We have left to complete Trowbridge Park, and right now when they come in, we are going to have some issues with our parcels being in override. That's one of the areas as the AMAR review that they don't want our parcels in override. They want it to naturally calculate out based on what's on the parcels. I was not comfortable removing the override until I had physically inspected every parcel. So I already am aware for that area. I have to have a corrective action, and we've already put that in place. Part of the review process is they're going to look at, are we measuring the properties correctly? Are we listing the property, the information on the record cards correctly? And then to make sure when there's a transfer in ownership that we're uncapping the taxable value according to Proposal A. They go through and they're going to review the sales to make sure that we're uncapping the taxable value appropriately. They're going to look at our building permit list, and they're going to make sure that we're picking up all new construction appropriately, whether it be a deck, a shed, or a brand new home, or a big box store. They're going to go through and they're going to make sure that we're picking up the appropriate new construction and value every year. One of the other items that they will come in and inspect will be our board of review minutes. Being that the board of review is its own standalone judicial body, but it's also governed by the rules of the State Tax Commission and the General Property Tax Act, they're going to look through and make sure that all of the actions that are taken by the board of review follow through the proper steps, that they turn it over to me as the assessor. I enter the changes into the assessment roll and into the computer database, and we submit them down to the county so it tracks. One of the other requirements is that we have to make sure that the minutes are turned over to the township clerk, because they are the official, the clerk is the official keeper of the records. So they're just going to look to see that procedurally we're following the requirements that the State Tax Commission is responsible, that every township and city follow those same rules. There are forms that are required to be submitted to county equalization every year. Some of the forms are, when I say that, I am certifying the assessment roll. We print out the report, we sign it, we submit it when we do the assessment change notices, when everybody gets their mail at the end of February. And it shows what their changes are going to be for the following year. That's all part of the procedures in order to show that we're meeting. There's about 6 forms that get submitted, and then we have to make sure that they're in a timely fashion. If we fail to have any of those deadlines met, we don't have a certified role. We could right then, they could come in and assume our assessment role. So those are very important that we meet the timeframes that are in the state statute. Part of, did you guys get the other handout of what the form is, exactly the areas that they're gonna critique?
It did get uploaded into the packet, but late, so I don't know if everybody pulled it. If you, I think I have a hard copy if somebody.
I actually made copies. Jason, could you grab those copies that are on that? I apologize.
Got it.
Thanks. I apologize that I did not get those to you before the meeting. This is exactly the form that they're gonna go through, and they're going to just put Marquette Township right on the top of it, and they're gonna go through each one of these areas to see how we're doing, and they're going to look for anything where we have strengths and weaknesses, and they're gonna point them out. And anything where we don't meet this minimum assessing requirement, we're required to put together a corrective action and have a time frame as to when we wish to have it completed. With knowing we got picked this year and I still had the 20% of Trowbridge Park, I immediately went in proactive mode, figuring out we have to have this plan of action in place because I don't want them beating us up any worse than, you know, nobody passes the SAMR. So it's kind of an important thing that we wish to have everything in place. I contacted our software vendor, BSNA, and asked for one of their consultants to come up and show me how to properly use our database. I've been here since 1998, and I have not been entering sales correctly into our database. I had never received the proper training. So the first thing that he showed Janelle and I when he came into the offices and said, well, you have these two items like reversed. So when you go to do the reports in order to run what would they call the ECF factor, which is your economic condition factor, to make the state manual representative to your local area and basing it on the neighborhoods that you are most, have the most characteristics to in which your property would be most compared to. So if you're in Trowbridge Park, you're being compared to properties within Trowbridge Park. You're not being compared to a property on Lake Superior. That's what that economic condition factor does. It keeps your neighborhood, and keeps the sales and the information in relationship to your neighborhood. Now, had we been entering the information correctly into BSA, I could have ran these reports within just 2 minutes, and it would generate the information that we need. Instead, we're doing it longhand, not sure how to enter it. So we have this amazing tool that, you know, we're able to use, and we didn't have the skill set in order to utilize it. So when the BSA came there for 2 days, we found we now have the capabilities of having GIS maps right directly to your parcel. So if you were to come in my office and say, look up my parcel, I enter in your parcel ID number, hit show me the GIS layer map, it goes right in, I see your aerial, I see your buildings, it's got the outline, it's all highlighted. We didn't have that
We can see
before.
if you put a garage back there that
Correct.
we weren't aware of, and it'll
Correct.
show it's on your property line.
The big one is swimming pools.
It's pretty cool.
Without leaving the building.
Well, you have to still go out and measure it, yes. But it gives us we can see right when a real estate agent or a title company or anybody calls and says, hey, what do you have there? We have a little discrepancy. We can flag it immediately and go right out to do the field work and confirm the dimensions or the quality of the construction. And we can go right through and use that. It's an amazing tool to have. We have found when you are out doing, you know, hundreds of field checks, you get a picture on the wrong file. That's been most useful too, because you're like looking at a picture, it's like, that doesn't represent when we got there, so we know what areas we have the discrepancies in, and we're able to now go through what we need to do and get it fixed. So that was step one. I wanted to make sure we had that in place because that's very big with the State Tax Commission to show you're doing what you need to do to realize that you have areas you have to improve. The other thing is we have Apex Sketch. We have been using that software for about 5 years. Janelle has CAD experience, and she's real good about drawing out the sketches of the buildings and the improvements. Well, we had contacted Apex and asked for them to help us with the shapefiles for the land. They were able to take all of our parcels and draw them exactly to what your parcel, based on your legal description, exactly the outline of your property. And some of them, they were able to actually get the dimensions. For that little bit, those 2 phone calls have saved me probably 2 years of clerical time that I do not have to bring those records up to place for what we need as part of this AMR review. So I just wanted to let you know that's where we've been. You know, you guys have been very supportive of our department and have always been willing to give us the technology to use this. And part of our going forward with the proactive plan is, instead of using our renewal requirements for our education, going towards state statutes where you can get all those resources off of the internet and through all of the state tax commission's bulletins, we are going to use that training to go sit through more BSA classes so we can utilize the tools that we already have here.
I will tell you guys that, you know, Dulcie is telling you that she was doing some of it wrong and they didn't understand. I mean, we weren't scratching the surface of the capability of this software. When the gentleman was up here that was working with her for those few days, and I introduced myself to him, or Dulcie introduced me to him, we were talking, she said, man, you have no idea what we don't know. And he said, don't feel bad. You're actually pretty far ahead from many of the municipalities I've met with. And I think he talked about, was an assessor, went to work for BSNA, and he said he thought he was pretty sharp. He thought he knew all that. And when he went to work for BSNA, he found out how much he didn't know. So what we've uncovered is that this is an incredible resource. Our software is an incredible resource. But we have to invest the time to get the training so that we know how to use it right and utilize it, and it will make our department function so much better moving forward.
It's like the old saying, garbage in, garbage out, when you're dealing with computers. When you don't realize where the information, when you have reports generating, which behind-the-scenes fields it's pulling that data from, if you don't put the appropriate information into those fields, your reports are not going to be accurate when you have to put together the information that the state's going to review.
Pete, got a question?
With this new information that you found out, how are you gonna make it? You gonna do all right?
For the 2015 year that they're actually coming to audit, no. But that's our plan of action. Now that we know.
You just have to have a plan saying what
Correct,
you're going to do.
and we have to have a time frame to say, this is our corrective action. We're doing this, this, and this, and it's going to be completed by A, B, and C. They follow up with you. The State Tax Commission is going to review our overall report to see which areas we're strong on, which areas we're weak on, which ones that we didn't pass on. And they're going to come back to us with a letter, and it's going to be addressed to the township clerk and township supervisor. I only get carboned on it. And it's going to go through and show, these are the areas that you did not pass on. What are you going to do to correct it, and by what time frame? So we're months ahead of the game by recognizing the areas that we didn't have to their standards. Like I say, I had one more year of finishing out that field work for that 20%. If they pull a couple of houses in Trowbridge to measure at this point, we'd be dealing with the former assessor's records, because I have not physically been there yet to measure them. So that's my only area of concern.
In the past, with all the stuff you've been going through, what percent do you usually get a year?
We usually get it 20%. We have it right set up on the
Because
scale.
that's what you're supposed to, and I just wonder
Correct.
how we're.
Yeah, no, we're right on timetable.
good
We
for
keep
you.
a track of it on the.
Good.
Secretary?
Well, don't feel bad, because I was audited today on election. So the state is, making their attempt to make sure that, we're doing things right here. So, but I passed, so I'm good.
Good.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I've got to mention the tax tribunal. This is kind of a joke. Are they trying to save their butts now or something? That the tax commission is making sure that we're doing our job right so that it can be changed later?
The State Tax Commission did say, as they changed it from the old 14-point audit to this AMAR review, that they were going to systematically go out and do their 20% per year and go through and audit the state, right? So they're kind of pushing it on themselves. We were just lucky enough to get that first draw somehow.
For the
I
UP,
don't know
yeah.
why. I mean, but the UP got drawn first.
They had done some downstate, but when they decided that they were going to venture north of the bridge, there was 2 or 3 counties that got picked up here. The other thing to remember is there used to be a state assessors board and also the state tax commission. And about 5 years ago, they eliminated the state assessors board because they didn't feel the education of the assessors at that time were up to where they needed to be in order to have proper assessments on everything. When that mandate came through and they changed those rules and those laws, the State Tax Commission took over the education of the assessors. What they were finding is there was a lot of good old boy networks. There were a lot of situations where there was lots of missing value. And since they've been going through and proofing this, our state overall value, even with the economic lows that have been taking place, we've been actually holding pretty firm because it's been so important that they're going through and auditing every township, every city, to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do by law. And if we don't, they could either come in and assume the assessment role, and then in order for a reappraisal to be done, you're looking at $200,000. They don't care how you pay for it. You just get a bill. They take your roll, they send in the assessments. That'd be your assessment.
And if they
That's
didn't
why-
like it, they'd reorder it.
Pretty much. Yeah. So it's one of those, it's not a bad thing to have them come here and point out. It's just you have to be able to accept criticism, which I'm not the very best at, but, and then just use their information as tools and how to fix it and go forward. Yeah, they don't take it very lightly, and they reformatted all the education because there was such a problem.
Ernie, you had questions, comments?
I think being in my previous work experience was all in computers net. I do know that even at my level, the continual changing on the computers, the changing of the software, the training is never ending.
Very
And that
true.
you're gonna have to continue to go through that. And it gets to the point where it gets so much information that it's hard for one individual to do it. You need multi-people to do bits and pieces of it and try to pull it all together, because there's so much. And just listening to you, that it's never going to be never-ending process in that.
Plus, we're finding out too with the software that we hadn't even realized we could even do, how much the other departments can share this information back and forth, because we just recently put utility billing, general ledger, our accounts payable, receivable, all of our software went to BSA. So we can link so much and make it just user-friendly for everybody. If we know, if I change a name on an owner, Brenda will find out. Lois will be able to check it for, voter registration. Jason, whenever he needs to upload anything, it could have all the information right there. So, we're getting a lot better. It's even got the capabilities down the road of when Kirk's wanting to know where the hydrant lines go, we can have it where he'd be able to say, show me this block from here to here, who all would be impacted by that shut-off, and I could generate him a list. We just have barely even scratched the surface of what the software can do.
Pete?
And the nice thing about this, I can hear the excitement in your voice, and I know you're gonna get it done.
Of course.
It's so nice to have you there and doing that, and just
Thank you.
enjoy it,
Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions for me?
Thank you, Delsey.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate you giving up an evening to enlighten us.
No problem.
Clerk Rattari?
Since we're approaching our deadline, I'll make a motion, we extend the meeting by 30 minutes.
Support.
Motion and support to extend the meeting by 30 minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? That motion passed. Next item on your agenda is 9E, the discussion of the zoning enforcement junk cars ordinance. The reason this is on the agenda is because we've gotten lately, and it's not unusual, especially after snow's gone and people start to look around the neighborhoods and they start to realize that we have some zoning enforcement issues that crop up, whether it be piles of brush, cars with no plates on them, people who have started up a junkyard since the previous winter, or a parts supply warehouse, depending on how you look at it. And so we talked a little bit about, is our ordinance right? Do we have the zoning ordinances in place that allow us to enforce it? And if we do, are we enforcing it? And if we aren't enforcing it, why not? And so we asked Jason to just come and get that dialogue started with the board and Planner McCarthy.
Well, thank you and good evening. We do have a property maintenance ordinance, but the Planning Commission has been discussing the revision of that to perhaps better suit our neighborhoods. And in my opinion, we have a diverse township. You have a platted area which has small lots, and when you have eyesores and blight, those things stick out more. when you have larger tracts of land, which is probably in 70% of the township, setbacks are greater, people are developed into their property more, and sometimes you don't see those things until it's fall, or maybe not at all. But certainly in the urban environment, we do have some issues out there, but we also have an ordinance in place to take care of it, where some of the items fall through the cracks, especially involving junk cars, is when they're parked in the county right-of-way. We do not have jurisdiction over the right-of-way, and so there's an issue there with the enforcement of the County Road Commission perhaps not being the equivalent of our enforcement action. And I can think of two cases. One is near Waldo. I won't say which house it is. And then there was another one that was brought to my attention. Now, granted, we have two employees, one full-timer in me and one part-timer in Janelle, who I share duties with the assessor. We are not always out doing window canvases of the entire community, but we do find things. There's another place that just popped up on my screen on Wright Street. And sometimes you take care of those problems and they come back. You take care of them, then they come back. My suggestion to Dennis was that, particularly in Trowbridge with this road millage and the rehabilitation of roads, the area is going to look nice. And perhaps this is a good time to readdress property maintenance and be not more forceful, but to maybe do some PR work and let people know that we will be enforcing a little bit more in certain areas. There's been a tremendous reinvestment in Trowbridge, and now you have that dichotomy of the old school Trowbridge residents interacting with people that have moved in, bought a lot, and built a, perhaps a $250,000, $300,000 house. And so I think people are coming and expecting more in property maintenance, and so perhaps it's time to do that. One thing that I will mention, and I did work in Ashland. I was hired as the neighborhood preservation officer, which was a full-time job, and there's a little bit more disparity there economically, which led to that full-time job. But I did have some of the most rewarding relationships in working on those cases between property owners that were complaining against each other and putting out those fires. But it's important to provide resources for people. Don't just go out and tell them to get rid of this junk or this scrap, but give them a pamphlet that shows how to do that. And that's one of the things that we're working on with the community profile. Jason Schneider came in and said that there's no welcoming format for the township. Well, it's in process right now. The community profile won't be just a bunch of demographic data and advertising for stores. It's going to be something that we can hand out for new residents and provide them with resources to take care of some of these issues. So we do enforce the BOCA, or the Building Officials and Code Administrators National Property Maintenance Code. That's from 1996. There's probably been some significant revisions to that. And also what you see now a lot of times is communities incorporating all of their ordinance, their standalone ordinances, into a unified development code or a unified ordinance. One of the things that we're proposing when it comes back from the County Planning Commission is that the lighting ordinance becomes part of the zoning ordinance. It just gets inserted into a specific section that makes sense for that to be in there. Then you don't have to go searching through years of old ordinances that have numbers on them. It's part of the zoning ordinance, and it's much easier to administer. I think that generally covers it. I just wanted to stress the fact that we can't address junk cars. You're allowed to have one unregistered or inoperable vehicle on your property. You can have a major overhaul of a vehicle on your property, but it has to happen inside of an accessory structure. You can't have a chassis outside and then the body of the car in the garage. But I would ask that, I don't think there's a huge problem. I've seen huge problems, and that was definitely in northern Wisconsin. This is not one of those areas. I will say, if you do see stuff out there and you want to share them with us, we will be glad to go out and take pictures, put the date stamp on them, send the letters. We usually we do a ask, tell, and then cite. scenario where, let's say somebody has an issue on their property, we would write a letter asking them to fix that within a prescribed timeline. If they don't comply with that, then you say you shall fix that within prescribed time frame, or you'll be, cited. So that's where it's at from our standpoint.
I think one of the things that Jason talked about that I think is key here is about providing resources to folks, and we had a little conversation about that this afternoon earlier. How do we help somebody and provide them with resources? If it's a property maintenance issue, if it's, something else, are there resources out there? Are there groups out there who we can match up and they'd be willing to help? Maybe it's somebody who just doesn't have the physical ability to maintain property. Are there volunteer organizations out there who'd be willing to, be listed on there that somebody could make the phone call and they would come in and help that individual help clean up or maintain their property? What if it is just somebody who picks up junk cars and pays $200 to pick up a scrap car and haul it away? Rather than just cite somebody, are we providing them with options? And I think that's one of the key things that we should be doing as a township, is being able to provide the options that say, not just, you got a junk car, clean it up, and we're gonna fine you $50. It's to say, maybe you need some help, here's the resources that we're aware of, and if, you've got something else, give us a call. And I think it makes it that much more friendlier of a way to handle it. It's still, we're gonna accomplish it one way or the other. You can always escalate it, but, I think, like Jason had, was it Faith in Action or something, there's local church groups that would go out and help somebody, and, maybe that's something that we should be pursuing and talking about as a board, is that I think you gotta provide the options and the resources if you wanna really, truly, maintain your property and stay within the letter of law of the ordinance. Pete?
Jason, how do we deal with people who have antique cars? They're working on an antique car. We have quite a few people involved in, classic cars and that. They start off with the chassis and then they, bring the body in and stuff like that. Does this still have to be
Technically, it's
licensed?
supposed to occur within an accessory structure or garage.
So where do we go from here? You're still open to looking at Planning Commission and making more recommendations back to us?
Very well.
Questions for Jason before we allow him to run away? See, it's good to go on late. You get a lot less questions that way. Thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Got one more. He might
Oh, I know.
stay up there.
The next item on your agenda is 9F, consider the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Grant Project Agreement Resolution. Take it away.
Well, this is the project agreement for the MNRTF development grant that was awarded in 2014 for the establishment of the 6 to 8 foot handicapped accessible pathway, landscaping, park bench, and signage as a component of that development grant. So basically, this is just saying, as we've done with the purchase of the property, in a similar fashion, we signed by resolution a purchase agreement that said that we have committed to the 13,000, I think it was 13,000 even, which is 26% of the grant that we received. And so in order to be able to expend funds and be reimbursed for those funds and those improvements by the state of Michigan DNR, we need to get this resolution to them, along with a couple of other accompanying documents, basically a boundary map and a couple other things. And that will allow us probably next year, because so much focus has been put on Lions Field this summer, but we have until March of 2017 essentially to complete that project, of which we believe most or the lion's share of that work will be done next summer. So that's going from the parking lot up to the grade where the current trail kiosk is now, distance of about a quarter mile.
Clerk Tari?
I'll make a motion, we accept the resolution, and I'll reference it in the minutes, and it's the $13,000.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comment or questions? Seeing none, Clerk Tari?
Clerk Rattari is yes. Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Truscott?
Yes.
Trustee Pompo?
Yes.
Trustee Durant?
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
And Supervisor Limata?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you. I'll make sure that that gets down to Lansing first thing tomorrow or after it's signed by clerk retired.
Yeah, tomorrow afternoon I'll get it typed up and we'll get it sent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. The next item on your agenda is 9G. Consider budget amendment number 2015-06. Clerk Rattari.
Present to the board that budget amendment 2015-06, and let me get down to it here. And the highlight of that is the authorization is requested to accommodate the remainder of the 2015 street projects preliminary utility project planning, as well as design and bidding phase. That cost for that is $75,000. $30,000 was approved in the budget amendment 2015-04. Also requested is increase for revenue expenditures in the library fund to account for the actual taxes collected and dispersed. So I made the motion to accept that.
Support.
Motion and support. Any questions or comments?
Only comment I have, we're gonna give this money to the library, and they're gonna have to end up giving it to someone back, give it back in that too, so.
Yeah. And so it starts.
Yes.
If there's none other, Clerk Rattari.
Clerk Rattari is yes. Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
Trustee Pompo.
Yes.
Trustee LaRue.
Yes.
Trustee Truscott.
Yes.
Trustee Durant.
Yes.
And Supervisor Limita.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on your agenda is 9H. Consider payment of the Michigan Townships Association dues, $4,130.90. Again, this is our annual dues that we pay to the Michigan Townships Association for the variety of support that they give to Michigan Townships across the state, and certainly to Marquette Charter Township. And it has everything from information services to the lobbying they do for us, to informing us about what's going on in Lansing, to fighting our fights down there. It's a collective of the 1,240 townships that make us so strong, and we've approved it every year. It also includes educational opportunities that they make available for us, certainly the big one in January every year, but also the MTA on the Road meetings that are held several times throughout the year, including in the UP. In fact, we just had a couple of board members attend one just 2 weeks ago, I believe, that I saw some information come through on. So would somebody care to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Is there any board member comment or concerns?
Definitely worth every penny.
So motion and support to approve the annual MTA dues. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Manager Gerard, this is going to bring us up to the agenda item number 9I, Manager's Report.
Other than what you have in the printed document in your packet, the only comment that I want to do is just to, again, reiterate what Supervisor Lehman mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. The calendar that was distributed early did have an incorrect date. The boot hockey tournament, 3-on-3 boot hockey tournament, will be on Saturday, the 20th of June, not the 21st.
Questions for Manager Gerard? Ernie?
Just one, we haven't, we got an email from Lois that the audit has been completed. We should be getting copies
Correct.
shortly in that too. So, will they be attending the meeting at one point in time? Because I think that was one of the requests I had.
Yeah, we did not build that into the contract, but they will come to a meeting if the board wants them to. Kept the price down.
What I would suggest is when we get the paper copies in a couple of days, give everyone a chance to digest it, and then ask somebody to come in and come to a future meeting.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Manager Gerard? Seeing none, close the manager's report and go to public comment. Any members sitting out there wish to make public comment? Going once, going twice? Close public comment, move to additional comments from board members. Those board members wish to make comment may do so at this time. Seeing none? Oh, Lynn, go ahead.
I neglected my planning commission, I'm sorry. And it's just short and sweet. We had 2 public hearings. One was on the establishment of the smaller acreage that we talked about, and Chair Allen mentioned last time too. And the second one was the lighting ordinance for outdoor lighting that Jason was just referring to. And then we talked about the importance of the resource production district, because we're going to have to visit that again as to what we expect to happen. We've set up forest preservation or recreation, depending on who you talk to, and we have property in the township that we need to be concerned with, and it's come up a few times at the planning level that these properties, like they have with Plum Creek now, are coming on the market. The owners are deciding to divest themselves of their property, and in a lot of cases, it's around or includes a lot of our natural resources that we enjoy and have tourists for and bring family to. So we had talked at the planning level a few years ago about being able to establish some kind of a fund in our budget to possibly buy these properties at some point. And I don't know what that would look like money-wise or how long it would take, but we really need to be aware that this stuff is happening, and whether we can get first right of refusal and reach out to these property owners, especially the big lumber companies who own so much of it, or the mining entities. We need to be proactive with that and not lose, Harlow Lake or whatever it is up in that area especially. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that. That's really all we talked about. It was a quick meeting.
Thanks, Lynn. Diana?
Nope, just want to remind everybody that school's out now, so watch out for kids.
Ernie?
No, nothing.
Really?
Clerk Katari?
I guess the only comment I'd make is about the audit. It was complete. Lois did send me an email today. She said everything looked good on it. We can make comments as the board, but you got to remind ourselves as the board, it's an independent audit of us. So we really don't. We can make comment on it, but we really don't have much business with it, because that's why it's independent. So you have a third party looking at it to make sure we're doing what we're doing. And then on that same token, since we have nice technology in this building now, if we do request someone be here, maybe we could have them Skype in or something. Could have it on the screens in front of us. So because we have that capability now, it saved probably a lot of money for someone coming up to do it for 10 minutes or so, if we can get their time to do it. So I think I could set that up. So.
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah?
No.
Pete?
I just want to bring up two things. If the residents would see a light out, street light out, just call us, the township here, and let us know. And also, if you see at the Lions Field over there, somebody's with their motorbike is playing games and doing little wheelies. So if you see someone over there, call here or call them anywhere. Call somebody up, let us know if you know who it is, because they're just spinning around in that. So I try to watch as much as I can over it, but somebody did it the other night, so thank you.
Speaking of Lions Field, I did get a couple contacts over the last couple weeks from some residents who live near there, and I just want to remind everybody that the new rink that's out there is designed for hockey, both ice and roller hockey, or you can rollerblade in there, but it was not designed for baseball batting cage. It is definitely a rink. We do provide, however, a actual batting cage with a net over it. Please feel free to avail yourself of said batting cage and or ball field if you need to have the urge to practice. But the ice rink is clearly not designed for baseball. And I've asked them to just call the sheriff and have the deputy come and remind you, since they have reminded you a few times. If you see your kids going out the door with a ball and glove, you may want to remind them that the ball field is the appropriate place, not the roller rink. That having been said, I'll close board member comment and entertain one last motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
We have motion and support to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes. We are adjourned.